Hey, all you freaks and geeks out there in podcast land. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Greenbelt Botanicals. I'll give you more information about them later on in the episode. And now, on to the show. It's Wednesday, March the 10th, and you know what that means. Welcome, Freaks and Geeks, to another smoke-filled and jam-packed episode of the Doctor's Orders podcast with the 512 Foot Doctor. The podcast where I meet with some of the most creative and influential people that I know to share stories from the ride of life. As always, I'm your host, the 512 Foot Doctor, coming at you live and direct from the one and only studio of Life or Death. If you're a returning freak or geek, thank you very much for checking back in to our regularly scheduled appointment. And if you're new here, tuning in for the first time, well, welcome. Welcome to the Freaks and Geeks family, and I want to let you know you need to buckle up quick for this ride. Freaks and Geeks, this is episode number 25. Man, 25 solid episodes, and this one is here. Volume 3, don't get that misunderstood. We've come a long way from Volume 1. We've hit different strides in Volume 2, and this is it, Freaks and Geeks. Volume number 3. We're halfway through it, my goodness. Now, without further ado, sometimes I beat around the bush, and that's something I'm working on, something I gotta stop and just get right on to it. Our guest today, he's a Dallas-based artist. He's also an avid film poster collector, be it vintage posters, be it foreign posters. He's even an avid collector of some propaganda posters as well. We're going to talk about that. He's got a lot of interesting mindsets and just interesting outlooks and just stories of how he's come about to in his artistic path and even come about collecting some of these extremely rare posters. So without further ado, Freaks and Geeks, episode number 25, put your hands together for our guest, Maxx Henry Frazer of SNIPE Art. What's going on, man? How you doing today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
Let's go ahead and we're going to dive right into what I call the Heinz 57 life catch-up. Now, I know I introduced you to a certain extent, but if you could please introduce yourself to the Freaks and Geeks, that's the audience here for the Doctor's Orders podcast with the 512 Foot Doctor. And if you could tell us your name, tell us where you're from, and tell us what do you do?
So my name is Maxx Henry Frazer. I'm from the East Coast, DC area. Been out here in Dallas since late 2005. So been here for a while now. Raised my kids out here. My day job is head of digital for a fairly large traditional print company. And I've been painting since probably early to mid 2014. I've been painting. And it's just been progressing on from there. It started out really as a kind of a creative outlet for myself, something to balance kind of the stress of work, and it's evolved quite a bit. Now it's not paying all the bills, but I've been fairly successful over the last year or two, especially.
Cool, man. Like, before we get into discussing that, like, I stumbled upon you do you know Brandon Epica or Brandon? I forget what's his other last name. Brandon Ayala. He used to run a boutique down in the Deep Ellum area. That's where I stumbled upon some of your first pieces out there.
Yeah, he was a really early supporter, and I mean, I'm talking probably like 2015 is when I got a couple of pieces, and he actually was the first place he was the second place I ever showed my art, and the first place I ever had a solo show. Nice. And actually the first purchase out of what I would consider kind of a gallery environment or show environment was at Epica. That was a really cool spot downtown.
Yeah, yes, it was tremendous. So I always think about it. It's too bad that it's no longer there, but it was just a period in time. That's what it is. So yeah. It's a Sunday, man. What were you getting into earlier today?
Today, got up, I got a 3-year-old, so we're up nice and early, moving around with her. Already gotten church in this morning, and so the rest of the day is just kind of relax with the family. It's usually my Sunday. I try to keep Saturdays a little busier, get a bunch done on Saturday, so that Sunday we can just relax.
Good. Are you a coffee person for the morning?
No, I'm a Monster Energy person, unfortunately. I'm trying to change that, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
Good on you, man. If you want to make that change, you can make that change.
Yeah.
That's it. So can you walk us through like a typical day in the artistic realm for you? Like what, from start to finish, if you do you have a devoted day, or is that every day, but maybe like a project day? What?
Yeah, I usually, so for the most part, I paint in the evening.
Okay.
And I usually get started when my girls go down. So I'm usually painting from 9 to midnight, 9 to 2 when I am painting. Okay. Very rarely do I get to hit it at stretches where I can just go at it for 8 hours in a day. I'm always very envious of artists that have the opportunity to do that. And usually it breaks down. I mean, pieces take me, I can knock out small pieces in 4 or 5 hours. So that's usually a couple of days worth of work. But larger pieces can be, 2-3 weeks. If I'm working on something for 20, 25 hours, it can take weeks.
All right. That's a good process there. I mean, they're all personal, they're no artist, while they work in similar ways, no artist I feel has the same track.
Yeah. And I've gotten better about breaking my process down into kind of manageable sections. So I hit kind of milestones. I scope it out, and I can, sketch the art onto the poster or prep the poster. So I've got a couple of stages associated to each piece, and I try to hit those, each night. So I'm not halfway in between something. Okay. When I quit.
Progress or something, little
yeah.
Still in it. I got you. All right. So I got a couple of random questions before we finish off this little introductory section, the Heinz 57 Life Catch Up. My first one, do you have like a favorite gadget or a tool that is good for you in life?
Recently it's been my iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil, because I always struggled. I struggle being organized. I'm still working on it. As I get busier and busier, I've got to find ways to get myself organized. I'm very blessed to have a very organized wife, so that kind of has allowed me to stay unorganized for as long as I have. But my iPad is kind of my catch-all now, because I can jot notes, but I can save them and send them digitally. I send myself a lot of stuff. I surf the internet for ideas. I work off of it. So that's my iPad Pro is kind of my catch-all device right now.
That's good, man. That's a modern one too. And you got the pencil on it. You got to be able to do a whole lot of stuff on there.
Yeah. The next frontier for me is going to be starting to sketch in something like Procreate, and using the pencil for art as well. But right now it's all business, notes, ideas, keeping ideas jotted down, journaling when I can, things like that.
Cool. Let me ask you this. Do you have any, aside from your artistic background, do you have any other favorite hobbies?
No, not really. I grew up, I played soccer at a pretty high level, and I kind of consumed my youth and, my early 20s. So about 22, so I still occasionally play soccer when I can, just, for fun.
Did you play in college?
I did. I went to UConn.
Okay.
I played up in UConn, left after really my first semester, ended up down in Argentina in a youth program down in Argentina. Went on from there to play for about a year in the second division in Mexico. But in general, it was a fun ride. I mean, not at a super high level, but definitely allowed me to travel quite a bit when I was young.
That's cool.
You got to grow up quick when you're dropped into a country you don't speak the language and you don't know anybody, So I did a lot of maturing as I traveled when I was younger.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing right there. Let's see. All right, here. Based on inspiration, which living do you say most inspires you?
Oh, wow.
And you could pick more than one. I know that's a little bit of a broad question.
Members of my family keep me inspired, keep me pushing forward, my girls, especially. I don't know if that's the right answer that you're looking for, but it's just as far as keeping me motivated, keeping me on my toes, keeping me running, No, I would say my girls, as far as, kind of having an impact, something that's, kind of in my face every day, reminding me of why I'm doing things. The example I'm trying to set for them, keeping me motivated, to continue to provide for them. They're probably my biggest inspiration.
Cool. No, that's a good answer, man. I do respect that for sure. What's the most beautiful city you've ever been to in the world? You talked a little bit about traveling. Tell us about some of those beautiful cities out there that you've been.
Probably I would say favorite cities, Paris. I absolutely love Paris. Barcelona is a really fun city. It's a very international city. It's just a melting pot. And it's 24/7. I love Barcelona. I love that about Barcelona, is that it's, 24/7. It's the city's moving and going. I mean, it's as busy on the street at 2-3 in the morning as it is in the middle of the day. There's a certain beauty to Kingston, Jamaica. I lived in Kingston for a while, and I think it gets a bad rep. I think if you're not from Kingston, it's a tough place to be and go visit and really enjoy, the local atmosphere, because it's a rough city. But I was down there with people, from there. I lived down in Kingston, so I really loved Kingston, Jamaica. I mean, the people down there were amazing. So that's probably about my top three. I grew up on the East Coast. So I love the DC area. I love New York City. But internationally, Barcelona, Paris, Kingston, those are my spots. I'd go back anytime.
That's great, man. Yeah. I've never been, unfortunately, I've never been outside of the country. So those are some good recommendations. Almost went to Jamaica last year, but that was put on delays,
Yeah. Jamaica is a beautiful place. It's tough. I think people, for several reasons, have to kind of limit their experience of Jamaica to, kind of resort towns and resort areas. And there's so much more to the country. And I was really lucky to be down there in the situation I was in, playing soccer down there for a little while. I got to see a whole different side of it. It was great.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So you say you grew up in DC, the DC area. What was the name of the street you grew up on down there?
Laverne Avenue.
Laverne Avenue. All right.
Yeah, Laverne Avenue. I went to T.C. Williams.
Okay.
Remember the Titans.
Oh, nice. Have you done any work on a post of one of those posters?
No, actually I haven't. But the character that Denzel played in that movie was my driver's ed teacher, Mr. Coach Boone. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is a first occurrence for this podcast. Fact like that, man, that's out of sight.
Yeah. People don't know where Alexandria, Virginia is, so that's how I usually tie it. I say, remember the Titans? That's Alexandria, Virginia. I went to TC.
Oh, man, that's it right there. Let's see. So we're going to shift a little bit into the film spectrum, but not necessarily all the way in, because we're going to save that for just a little bit later on down the line. What are movies or TV shows that are important to your life? Just a couple of them out there.
I'm still a big fan of older movies. I really enjoy, the movies that come out today. I'm a huge I see movies. I mean, COVID shut down my movie going like to a halt. And I'm one of those guys, between me and my daughters. I mean, I'm probably seeing 2, 3, 4 movies a month as they're coming out. I mean, I see a pretty large swath of movies. I gravitate towards older movies. I feel like they don't make. I'm one of those people. I don't know if this is cliche or not, but they don't make movies like they did in the 80s and 90s anymore. 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, you just can't find them. They do occasionally, but by and large, I don't feel like they do. As far as shows are concerned, I tend to watch. I don't have a ton of time to watch TV. My wife and I, pick up some series here and there. Big fan of some of the premium series, the Sopranos, what's another one? Peaky Blinders has been a favorite of mine recently. Yeah. And so, shows like that I'm into, but for the most part, I like watching older stuff. I like watching older movies.
Yeah. So you ready for that, Many Saints of Newark, that Sopranos movie?
Yes, I am. I can't wait. I'm debating diving back into Sopranos and starting over. I mean, that's kind of the mark of a good series. If you can go a couple of years, step back into it and watch it, and it's like it's new all over again. I loved. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I mean, I always like the backstories to the stories. Like a prequel type thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and a lot of people. With David Chase running the helm, it's going to be a tremendous show, tremendous film. I would recommend, if you are going to go back and check out those episodes from the series. There's a podcast called Talking Sopranos, and it's got two of the main characters, Michael Imperioli, Christopher Moltisanti.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Bobby Bacala, and so they're in there. They've started from episode 1. They're trying to make their way all the way through it, and they have some past guests or past people from on the show just come on, and they'll do a little brief interview, and then they'll go through verbatim all the lines in that episode and like talk through the process and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I'm definitely a big Sopranos fan. I mean, any series that can keep your attention for that long, 4, 5, 6 seasons is something special.
And that's on like the podcast spectrum. I do believe they film it as well, and you can catch it on like YouTube and stuff like that. So that's another aspect.
Oh, okay.
But excellent, man. So a few more questions on the live catch up here. Back to away from the random ones and more to the scheduled ones. Have you had any recent changes in your life in the past recently, aside from the whole thing we went through this entire year? Any other recent changes, good or bad?
Nothing too major. I mean, I've been, fairly busy professionally, and I think it's kind of kept me from doing as much art as I would like to. I've gotten busier and busier. I'm debating making kind of another, pretty significant jump professionally kind of later in the summer. Yeah. So that will affect it too, but, nothing too crazy, honestly. It's been, by and large, this is, for me personally, I think 2020 was a pretty good year. Certainly a really good year for me financially, which is, kind of counter to what you would think, based on 2020. But I just been hustling, man. I've been had my head down and just been grinding, working.
That's good. Tremendous traits. So you spoke a little bit a while ago that you attended church this morning. Can you tell us about some of your just religious or spiritual influences that get you through life and that get you through your daily grind and stuff like that?
Yeah, I found faith, I would consider, later in life. Yeah. I found faith in my 30s. So, I'm fairly young kind of in my walk in faith, but it's one of those things that, I don't know if I found it or it found me, but it was at a very, very difficult point in my life, both personally. I was having some health issues and, I think it's kind of, for me, been kind of my North Star, I think for a lot of people, one of the things you struggles with is why are things happening? What's the reason for this? What's the, maybe in a broader sense, kind of what's the reason for being? And I think it grounds you on some level. And at the end of the day, honestly, it's provided me a kind of a calm through a lot of situations where I wish I had it available to me to lean on much sooner than I did. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's the guardrails, again, it was a lot of it, regardless of what faith you are, I think a lot of it is looking inwards, it forces you to kind of look in the mirror and look inwards. Oh, yeah. And that exercise in and of itself makes you grow up, there's really no way around it. And so, that for me has kind of been what it's been. And I think, it's made me a much better man. It's made me a better son, better brother, certainly a better father, better husband. So it's played a big role for me over the last, 7-8 years.
That's good. That's good to hear. Thank you for sharing that, man. It's just some insight that a freak or a geek, the audience members out there may gravitate to, and have a similar aspect to, similar insight for. But excellent. Is there anything this week that you're looking forward to this coming week? What's going on there?
I'm taking a trip to Mexico on Thursday. That's 2 days, going to San Miguel. It's going to be, it was really odd. My wife and I like to travel. And 2020 was going to be a banner year for travel for us. I mean, we had like 5 trips planned in 2020, all got canceled. Oddly enough, we were supposed to take a real quick trip, just the 2 of us down to New Orleans, really almost like a staycation. And we really didn't have any big plans. We were just going to go down to New Orleans and kick it for a day or 2. And the storm that came through, we were supposed to leave that Sunday. Yeah. So I mean, we woke up, well, the night before everything had already gotten canceled. So we turned around and we booked this quick trip down to Mexico. So that's what I'm looking forward to this week.
Tremendous. That's good. Well, here's our last question for the life catch up here. In the past 66 days, I say 66 days because it's from the first day of the month, from the first day of the year to now, a little bit over 2.5 months, or 2 months. Have you picked up any new routines, practices, or beliefs just in this year?
This year, so I've really had to. I was blessed to be presented with this really interesting opportunity from a professional standpoint, and the money is excellent, and it's going to add a lot of workload. And I'm already busy, so really it's forced me to start to tighten things up. Start to focus much more on how I'm organizing my time and my efforts, just because that actually kicks off, that gig kicks off this week. And so really I've been trying to get more organized. I'm trying to get a little healthier because I know for a fact that, I'm going to be under a significant amount of stress. I'm going to be working hard. I'm going to be working long hours. And so, I definitely want to kind of refocus on my health a little bit. But yeah, just trying to get a little more organized. I'm trying to put a little more process into my life. I've been, I think it's a gift and the curse. I've got a pretty flexible schedule. I'm kind of the one in charge. So it gives me a little more flexibility, and that flexibility sometimes, you can kind of, it lets you kind of get outside and, I tend to procrastinate a little bit. That's something else I'm working on. So, a combination of a lot of flexibility plus procrastination is not a recipe for success sometimes.
No, not.
So definitely been trying to get a little more organized. That's kind of been my focus, and I'm trying to get some better habits around, getting back in a little bit better shape, because I know that's going to pay dividends as I, kind of work long hours and I'm dealing with a little bit more stress.
Yeah, good on you, man. Good on you. Keep it up. All right, well, let's talk about the arts, man. Let's talk about you as a creator. First off, just tell us about SNIPE art. You say you started painting in like around 2014, but you were in the Dallas area in 2005, right?
Yeah, and I was interested in art when I was young, and I think it just kind of went by the wayside as I played soccer. I didn't have a ton of free time for extra kind of activities. And I actually dabbled in a little bit of painting, early in my time in Texas, and then just got away from it for whatever reason. And I actually started collecting. I'd never collected anything till I moved to Texas. And so I first started collecting limited edition prints was my first thing. And outside of Shepherd Ferry, who I collected quite a bit back in like 05, 06. I drifted towards those Mondo alternative movie posters for whatever reason. I found those and I loved them. And so I started collecting those. And that kind of, I think that if I had to look back, that was the beginnings of what got me to movie posters, which in turn got me to painting on them, But 2014, if you want to know how I ended up painting on movie posters.
Yeah, for sure.
So my brother and I always give each other, we try to give each other fairly interesting gifts. And at the time, so art is, we had been doing kind of prints to each other, as presents, and he was in Chicago at the time, and he had gotten a couple of, Blues Brothers, kind of alternative movie posters and, as prints. And so I came across, so in looking for a different one, right? Because he had 2 or 3 of them and he wanted to keep that going. I came across a Japanese movie poster for the movie, an original Japanese poster for Blues Brothers. And it was so wild. It was so different from the imagery and the poster you're used to seeing here in America. So I ended up buying it. And the guy who I bought it from on eBay reached out to me. There was a note in the purchase, and it was like, hey, if you're interested in bulk purchases. So I reached out to the guy, and he was selling off like his father's collection. It was some crazy number of movie posters, right? And he kind of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So then I was sitting on all these movie posters that I didn't know what to do with. I mean, I thought they were really cool, but I was in an apartment at the time. I didn't have any place to. And one of the things that I realized when he sold them to me was I would have like 10 or 12 of the exact same poster.
Okay.
And so, I was talking to my brother, and our first idea was, why don't we take these posters and screen print something on top of them and do like very limited edition sets of these posters. And so, after we ruined probably, dozens of posters trying that out, that did not work at all. I found that if you played around with it, you could, acrylic would stick, but you had to work with it.
Yeah. And
so, to this day, I've probably ruined hundreds of movie posters trying to paint on them, but that was the beginnings. Was first we wanted to screen print onto, I had like 15 of this one poster, this Kung Fu poster. Yeah. We were trying to screen print something onto it, and we couldn't make it work. So I drew it on and it worked out. I've still got that first poster I painted to this day.
What is that? What was it? What movie and what character did you drop on that?
It was this movie called Hot Dog Kung Fu. And I don't know the original title, but the title showcased in the US was Hot Dog Kung Fu. And I put Hong Kong Phooey on it. Oh
yeah. I think I saw that one. Is that one was that like a movie card? Is that one kind of,
I've done several variations of it, but no, it was a US it was a US one sheet. It was a US one sheet.
Cool. Yeah, you use Hong Kong Phooey a lot, man. He's a tremendous character.
Yeah, that was one of those wild characters that people that have kind of slipped under the radar. I think there's like, whole generations that don't know those characters, the underdogs, the Hong Kong Phooeys. Those were kind of different characters, than people are used to.
So in your like elementary, middle school, high school, did you have a passion for art back then? Were you was that part of you?
Yeah, I did to a certain extent. I was big into comic books, and what I liked to draw was I always liked to copy I was never really into creating my own images. I was into trying to draw the comic book images, that was kind of my thing. I drew quite a bit. My father was fairly artistic, and I think that's where I probably got the bug.
Excellent. Well, can you tell us about like your first creative experience with art? Like, where is the origin of this? Is it like, where does that start from?
I think, as I mentioned, my father was pretty artistic. He could sketch, pretty good. And I remember him doing stuff with us when we were young, and I was always just really impressed with his ability to draw and paint, and just be creative in general. Come up with ideas. We were making T-shirts back then. He would help us. We would come up with a concept, and then he would help us make a screen print, and like old school, like keeping it in the dark and everything. And that's kind of what I first remember. The first artistic push was him doing those sorts of things, just being creative in general, all sorts of different projects. He was good at woodworking as well. And so just that level of creativity was very interesting to me.
Yeah. And definitely sounds like you had a family support to pursue anything that you wanted to. It sounds like that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's see, as an artist, what are some of your like go-to tools that you need to be successful? You talked about the iPad. You talked about the Apple Pencil, the iPad. I don't even know what it's called. But, what are some of the other go-to tools outside of that realm that you need to be successful?
I've started using a projector occasionally with more intricate stuff. I can get by with certain characters, especially like The Simpsons. I drew a lot of The Simpsons, so I can get by The Simpsons pretty good. But some characters and some nuanced characters and poses are tough. So I'll use a projector. So I do use a projector occasionally, especially on much larger work, because you got to get it right. I wish I knew Photoshop. One of my struggles, one thing I do a lot of is I'll execute a concept on a smaller movie poster before I execute it on a larger poster that I have to linen back and really invest money in a lot of time. And that's because I can't really mock it up. I have to kind of, I don't have the ability to mock it up in Photoshop really. So I'll execute a smaller version of it to see how it comes out. And sometimes I like it, and sometimes it doesn't ultimately work out, but I'll use a projector occasionally. And that's really the only other kind of obvious tool that I use. I'd love to know how to linen back these posters myself, because that gets pretty expensive. So someday I'm going to have the time and the space to mess with that. But other than that, I just paint acrylics. I use a ton of gesso to lay a foundation for the work. But yeah, I just paint acrylics and go at it.
It's excellent, man. So let's talk about these cartoons, and let's talk about just why you get down with them so much. It's a huge influence on what you produce. We've been talking about it briefly right now. Let's really dive into it. And it's also incorporate, were you a Saturday morning serial and cartoon type of guy?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the 80s and early 90s, I mean, people that grew up during that time, that's when there weren't 3-4 TVs in a household. You know what I mean? You couldn't DVR something, kids didn't have the same say in what was on TV or the options, right? Or stuff that was on TV for kids. Yeah. So it's like, I think a lot of people that are in and around my age, I mean, I was born in 78. I mean, a lot of people that grew up in the 80s and early 90s, I mean, that was your time. That was your scheduled time where you could watch TV, first thing in the morning, maybe a little bit right after school, but that really early. I mean, because I know this, my parents went to work before my brother and I went to school, and we were, kindergarten, first grade, going to school by ourselves, walking to school, I locked the door. But it was like when G.I. Joe is over, that's when you leave for school. That's what we knew. That was like the rule. Like when G.I. Joe goes off in the morning, that's when you walk to school. But yeah, Saturday mornings was like, you got that hour to hour and a half window to watch some cartoons, and that was kind of your time on the TV. So, and then as I got a little bit older, The Simpsons was like a huge influence for us. That's the first show that I ever remember. Like everybody watched The Simpsons, and you come into school the next day talking about what happened on The Simpsons, So that's why you see I do a lot with The Simpsons. I mean, that's I used to practice drawing The Simpsons a lot, but that was a big influence. But yeah, I was, Voltron, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Heavy, Thundercats, before that, like Looney Tunes, real big Looney Tunes. When I was growing up, I have very fond memories of watching the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
So what about the cereal, man? We talk about that. Do you have like a favorite cereal back then that you would just get down on?
It was pretty. Who were you? What were you eating?
Puffs back then. That was.
I think we didn't have a ton of cash going on. We were getting kind of one. We were getting pretty much like Frosted Flakes was pretty much the move for the longest time. I remember eating, just boxes upon boxes and boxes of Frosted Flakes. And I think at some point, Cinnamon Toast Crunch was our move for a while too.
You can't go wrong
those two.
Crunch though.
Yeah, I got a box of it at the house right now.
Even the OG squares, even the strawberries, they're all tremendous. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, but that was us sitting on the floor eating a bowl of cereal and watching cartoons. That was definitely Saturday morning for sure.
Did you dabble into like the Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon era?
Yeah, a little bit. It's really funny too. And one of the things that I think was a real driver of me getting back into or like how I ended up doing the art that I'm doing is that when I had my my girls were into cartoons, and especially movies, especially little like cartoon movies, like, like Little Mermaid and Finding Nemo and stuff. And I always tell people, it's like, I mean, I've seen, they were born in 2008, 2006, my two older girls. And, I mean, I saw all those Disney movies, all those movies all over again. I watched all the cartoons over again because that's what was on TV, And so I think that played a role in kind of bringing that back up out of me. But they both loved movies. So
that's cool to have that to relive that. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
So let's see. So you reproduce, you take your own take on these characters. Who are some of your favorite characters to draw? And on the flip side, who are some of the characters that you struggle with? It is like, man, I'm not going to do that. That's just I've tried it once before and it's just a pain. I don't want to do that again.
I like this. I like The Simpsons, and there's such a huge body of work. So it's interesting, The Simpsons, and The Simpsons was definitely one of the earliest cartoons that was referencing popular culture. And so there's a tremendous amount of movie references in The Simpsons already. And so it's very easy to find crossovers and parallels because they're referencing movies. And nowadays you've got, Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, Archer. They all do that. They got that from The Simpsons. Those are definitely, easier ones to draw. I find that the Disney characters are tough for me. I need some more practice on Disney characters, but I'm a huge fan of, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, some of those movies. I need some more work on. They're tough, but the characters are a little more complex than, Bob's Burgers or a Simpsons, Characters are fairly simple these days. And they were much more complex back then. So the older stuff is much more difficult for me.
Yeah, I take that because I see your Deer Hunter poster with Bambi there. That's a little take on. That's what made you. How'd you stumble upon like getting that poster and putting that print on that?
So that's interesting, right? So that poster, I tend to like foreign versions of posters better because they had go ahead.
There's a lot more detail, and it's just like there's some hidden aspects to it as well that we don't just get when we get a poster, a U.S. print poster. So there's a lot more of like mysterious.
So the foreign posters are definitely. Yeah, the foreign posters were definitely, there's more art involved in the foreign posters. U.S. posters were always much more commercial. That particular Deer Hunter poster was deemed too aggressive for the U.S.,
okay.
So that version's never appeared over here. That's simply in Italy and France. Germany, I think, had, England, the UK had that version, but that was deemed too aggressive, that imagery, with him holding a gun to his head and everything. And so, I actually, that Deer Hunter poster, I've got a kind of a different version or different take on that I want to do, still with the Bambi theme. But, I always look back as Bambi as like, and just, Bambi's mother dying. That's pretty heavy for a little kid, to understand and get. I mean, it's, as far as Disney movies go, it's pretty heavy, subject matter. And Deer Hunter has always been a favorite of mine. And so just one of those heavy movies like, Taxi Driver or Apocalypse Now or something like that. I mean, just the whole tone of it is dark. And so I thought that made for a good, for a good mix. I potentially might do another version that's showing the contrast between how heavy that imagery is and like some happier aspects of Bambi, some lighter aspects of Bambi. But I actually still have that poster, that painting. It's on loan out in LA on view right now.
No, that's a sick print. That's a sick poster as well. I really like that one. So let's see. Let's talk about The Simpsons real quick. Who are your favorite characters? Drop like 3 to 5 of them on there.
Oh man, for sure, Mr. Burns.
Okay.
For sure, Chief Wiggum. I like Nelson.
Okay, Months.
And then And then I don't know who after that. Groundskeeper Willie probably rounds it out. Is my favorite, like really kind of random characters, you know.
Yeah, no, those are great. Do you remember the bunnies? Wasn't there some bunnies in there? Didn't they used to have like these two white bunnies? I remember like that those were part of Matt's. I don't know if it might have been outside of the Simpsons realm, but it was very much in like the itchy and scratchy theme. But there were two bunnies. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think those were outside of the Simpsons, but yeah, I remember the ones you're talking about. Itchy and Scratchy is another good one. I've got some pieces that I don't even know if I've ever even posted or shown anybody with Itchy and Scratchy, that I've done some crossover pieces I've done with some old Tom and Jerry
That's cool.
lobby cards that I've done. But yeah, Itchy and Scratchy was always great just because of how graphic it was. It was so in your face and over the top that, you know, you almost couldn't be mad at it. It was like almost so graphic that it wasn't even violent, you know?
Were you watching it on the Tracy Ullman show when it started there?
No, I caught it after that when it went to Fox. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, like I can relate on the whole Simpsons appreciation thing, because with just growing up, there was a time slot on Fox that was like, I think it was 6 to 7, or maybe even 5 to 6 was a block, an hour of The Simpsons, and then it opens up with, I think, 30 minutes of Seinfeld, and then it rolls into one episode of The Simpsons. And at the time, it was at the start of the hour, whatever it may be, probably 6. And I didn't at that time. I was like, "Fuck, it's gonna be it's Seinfeld on now, and then it's The Simpsons. Then I get to watch that." But I'm a huge fan of Seinfeld. And I guess that's what did it for me is I guess The Simpsons kind of puts me right into the Seinfeld appreciation that I have, because I would have to wait through through Seinfeld and then get right into The Simpsons what I wanted to. But I guess I started watching that and I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I get this. I like it.
But yeah, I like I said, that was the first. I mean, that's the first thing I remember. Like, you know, everybody at school was excited it was coming on, and then like as soon as you got into school, you were talking about what happened on The Simpsons the night before. Yeah.
That's good stuff. It's definitely changed now. I don't even know what they would talk. I don't know. I guess the anime is huge now. So
yeah,
people are in that discussion and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's not the same. That was like, I don't know, cartoon Americana right there in its heyday.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the series I do, I don't know if you've seen, but the only thing I really paint on outside of movie posters is, authentic U.S. home front propaganda posters. I don't know if you've seen any of those.
I think I saw a recent one, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, so I randomly started coming across when I would buy, you know, posters in bulk. I would come across like all sorts of random paper items. You know, old newspapers would randomly be in bulk purchases. And I got my first, original World War I U.S. home front propaganda poster, and it was like in tatters. But it was really interesting, right? Because those posters, they portray this ideal of what America is and what the American family is and what what are supposed to be American values, right? And so I really thought it was interesting to kind of, integrate The Simpsons into those because, in my mind, The Simpsons is a much more realistic look at what, it's a very, very truthful look at what America is, what the American dynamic, family dynamic is, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it was the idea The Simpsons are just such a drastic departure from what's being portrayed in those posters. I thought it just made for, really good, a really good theme. So I've intentionally not really sold many of those. One of the weird things about me being an artist is, it's not paying the bills. So I find myself very selfish with my art. I mean, I'll throw something out there, and if I'm not going to get what I think it's worth, I'm just going to keep it. Do you know what I mean? And so those I've intentionally held on to, but I've been kind of working my way through a number of characters. I've certainly done Homer, Bart, Lisa, Marge. I've done one or two with Mr. Burns. I've done one that's a really famous Norman Rockwell World War II poster, authentic World War II poster. I put Ned Flanders into it. It was about freedom of religion, so I put Ned Flanders into it. That's really the only thing I paint outside of movie posters. Those older World War I posters.
Gotcha. Do you have are they in the house a lot? Posted anywhere?
Yeah, those I don't have any of those up right now, but I do keep some of my own art up in the house. I try to mix it up. I've been trying to, circulate the art through the house. I've been buying more original art from people lately, so I've been kind of moving some of my stuff that I keep out of my studio, but I do hang my work in the studio. The oldest, most valuable poster that I own and have painted on is a World War I poster. I actually won at auction.
Okay.
I beat out the Library of Congress for this poster. The Library of Congress was bidding on it.
Man, that's great.
Yeah, and they reached out to me after the auction and wanted to acquire it, and it's messed up. I'd already painted on it when they reached out to me.
Oh.
And they were upset. I got a lot of like trolls online. I think whoever I was dealing with or communicating with there, I think they leaked my name and stuff to people, because I started getting all this like hate mail. Like, how could you paint on this thing? This is like American history. What have you done? And I'm like, well, I mean, if it was so important, they should have bid more for it then, but
crazy.
Yeah, but I actually painted a Scrooge McDuck into it. And again, just drawing the contrast between, I think the theme of the poster was like, you should be contributing your money to the war effort. And so it was like this war chest and people like tossing coins into it as a contribution. And I painted Scrooge McDuck diving into it from off the poster. So that was, I remember being super, super nervous about that. I think that's one of the rarest. I believe that poster was there's only 2 or 3 of those posters that exist. And that one was certainly in the best condition of all of them that do still exist.
Man, we've never had that either. Just a discussion of a guest here versus the Library of Congress. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, they were pissed, and I run into that occasionally with older, fairly rare movie posters. People really take offense because especially older posters. I mean, you have to think about it. They're limited edition, right? I mean, you get something. I always tell people, I got a French Grande from Enter the Dragon. I mean, how many screens did Enter the Dragon screen on in France in 73? I mean, not that many, some dozens possibly. Right. And how many posters were saved from back then? Very few. So these posters are pretty rare, especially larger posters are pretty rare.
Yeah. I got a couple. I've got like a huge, large poster of Speed, and I was thinking while I was prepping for this, it would be crazy to put like the Magic School Bus, because I think there's the bus on the front, but you could throw the Magic School Bus on there. That'd be pretty.
Yeah. I've had I've got a couple of Speed posters. There's this really funny Bob's Burgers episode where it's like a Speed crossover. I forget what he's trying to do, but it's the same kind of theme and vibe, and it's a lot stolen from the movie Speed. So I've considered doing one of those, and I think there's even an Archer episode where they reference the movie Speed as well. I love that movie Speed. That's one I love that movie.
Yeah. The first one was tremendous. The second one, that's go for me.
Yeah. I don't even know if I've seen the second one, but the first one, that's one of those ones. If I see it on TV, I'll leave it on. You can watch that from anywhere in it.
Oh yeah. It's great. Have you ever gotten any posters directly from the theater?
No, and only because, I really don't do a lot with new posters. Okay. For a couple of reasons. One, I usually am just not as excited about the imagery in new posters. They're very commercial. I think that, and I don't want to knock, there's definitely some creative shops that still do turn out, good movie imagery. But in general, I personally don't like the imagery as much. They're much tougher to paint on. After starting in the late 90s, there's, they're all glossy finish. It's a different kind of paper. And so they're really tricky to paint on. That being said, I have enjoyed painting on some of the newer Daniel Craig Bond stuff. I've painted some of those. I've got a really large poster for the movie Black Panther that I'm teeing up to paint on.
All right.
I mean, there's some certain movies that I'll work on. I've got some larger Matrix posters that are in the queue to get painted eventually. But that's why I really don't connect with the theaters in general. And I think they're a lot more strict. They're all very corporate these days, and they get sent something. This very specifically has to happen to the merchandise after they get it. They're not just handing stuff out.
Yeah. I like your the Batman, the Tim Burton one with the Joker in the center of it. I think that one's excellent, man. I really like.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a really, really early one. That's probably late 2014, early 2015. That one.
That's cool. Tell us about this the Shining one that you did, where it's got Nicholson and you got instead of Lloyd, you got Mo Sizlak in there. How did you come across getting that one?
Yeah, so those are actually two jumbo lobby cards. Okay. Those aren't necessarily posters. Those are jumbo cards. Those are probably something like 15 by 20, maybe. All right. Something like that. I got those as a set from the movie Shining, but those are the two that I wanted very specifically. And again, for me, that was kind of a straightforward one because The Simpsons has done, they did a Treehouse of Horror, specifically. So, sometimes it's not just me being super creative. I just love the idea of taking that mashup that's already kind of been done and actually integrating it into the poster. Yeah. But that was a no-brainer just because it worked out so well. Those are another two that I kept. I had somebody that the price wasn't right. I'm like, I'll keep them. These are cool. I did prints of those too, though. I did like a limited edition, like 4 or 5 of each of those, and sold them at one point.
That's cool. No, that's a solid piece right there. I like that stuff. But again, it's just the collabs, it's the mashups that you're doing, and like stumbling across this one right here. You got the genie on the Good Morning Vietnam, the whole Robin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I like that a lot. Freaks and Geeks, I got to check this out. Hit the IG, the Maxx Henry Frazer IG, and you're going to get a lot of that. You're going to get full exposure to what he's doing there. It's tremendous. Let's talk about this Kung Fu madness, this Kung Fu experience. What's up with that? How'd you get into that? I didn't have anything prepared on that. I dig Kung Fu a lot, and I dig Bruce Lee. We've talked about him a whole lot on the podcast, but where does that tie in with you?
I got into Kung Fu movies, later in life just because they were so wild. I mean, the storyline, the fight scenes, I mean, they were just these wild productions, so different from anything else that was going on in the 70s or 80s. I mean, they were like in this whole silo by themselves, and beyond that, the imagery on those posters is always pretty cool, I grew up at a time, I was a big Chuck Norris fan too. So, between his posters and Kung Fu posters, I've probably got one of the larger Kung Fu poster collections in North America. At this point. Yeah. I've got hundreds of titles, and a lot of larger posters, Italian 2 panels, French grandes from these posters. But a pretty significant U.S. Movie poster collection with Kung Fu titles as well. But I just love the imagery; they're great. I mean, they're always just like so extreme. Somebody's like flying through the air, chopping somebody's head off or something. It's just the imagery is just so wild.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. And sometimes they're drawn or sometimes they're photo, I like that aspect of it too. Old things to appreciate. Just details you no longer really see in stuff. You've talked about that with the modern poster as well.
Yeah, they just don't do that with posters anymore,
No. Freaks and Geeks. Let me talk to you real quick about the sponsor of the podcast, Green Belt Botanicals. Green Belt Botanicals is the most trustworthy and reputable CBD dispensary and retailer in the Austin area. And maybe you're listening from outside the Austin area or outside the state or beyond. Make sure you hit them up at greenbeltbotanicals.com. They have just an amazing surplus, an amazing variety of CBD tinctures, CBD smokables, CBD pre-rolls. They even carry a couple of strains of Delta THC in tinctures, in pre-rolls, and in smokables as well. And they're just ever expanding their products by the day. If you're looking for CBD dog treats for your four-legged friends, they've got some amazing options as well. If you're looking for CBD teas, if you're looking for CBD chocolates, if you're looking for CBD taffies, CBD topicals, CBD infused waters, they got it, and they got so much more. Make sure you hit them up either in-store or online at greenbeltbotanicals.com and use the official Freaks and Geeks promo code to get 15% off your purchase. That's FootDoctor15, all caps, FOOTDR15, to, like I said, get 15% off your purchase at Greenbelt Botanicals and greenbeltbotanicals.com. Support the sponsor because the sponsor supports the podcast. Now let's get back to the show. Let's really dive into film now. So we've kind of talked about the poster collection. We talked about film in like the beginning segments of this podcast, but tell us some of your favorite films that you really get down with and appreciate.
I mean, the older ones, I would say, the 80s movies I was digging, Lost Boys, Wall Street, Revenge of the Nerds. I remember loving that. Scarface is a huge Scarface fan. I got a ton of Scarface posters. I probably have about every Scarface poster that's out there. Some of the newer stuff, I think I've kind of drifted more just because I feel like they're not making the same types of movies these days. I watch more sci-fi. I love the Matrix trilogy.
You excited about the new one?
Yes, I am. That's going to be great. Excited about the Matrix trilogy. Heavier movies too. Deer Hunter, Taxi Driver, Apocalypse Now. Those are movies that those are going to stand the test of time. I mean, those movies are excellent. The Godfather series is another big one.
Did you watch The Joker by chance?
I did. I enjoyed it. I like these days. Comic book character movies are always excellent. You can let the story slide. I'm a big fan of the Avengers, all the Marvel Universe movies. Those are just kind of like, I don't want to call them mindless fun because maybe that's taking away from somebody, but it's just like you can tune out. You don't have to, it's not a heavy movie. It's just something you can kind of just enjoy, those are the types of movies that I'll have on in the background. A lot of the Marvel Universe stuff. You can just have it on in the background. You can, pick it up and watch it at any time. But I've been, 80s, early 90s is kind of like my sweet spot for the movies that I are like my go-to, I'm getting ready to do a Top Gun piece. I was watching Top Gun yesterday.
Okay.
I mean, that movie's like near perfect, I mean, that movie's excellent.
Right? Is it what is that? Maverick?
Yeah. That's going to be good. I'll check that one out for sure. But yeah, that was a great movie. Top Gun.
Who are some of your favorite actors and actresses as well?
For sure. Like, the go-to old school guys, man. Pacino, De Niro. I mean, everything those guys touch is gold. Go ahead.
Nicholson for sure for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's in classics like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is probably my favorite thing he's ever done. I loved him in Batman too. I mean, as campy and wild as that first Batman was, as bad as Michael Keaton was as Batman, I mean, he just carried that whole movie as the Joker, I mean, I like a lot of action stars. Like Stallone. I mean, the Rambo movies were always great to me. That was because I was a kid when, everybody wanted to be Rambo, I like Tom Cruise. I have a love-hate relationship with Tom Cruise and some of the movies he does, Some of his older stuff was his classics like the Top Gun. He made some stuff that was just, kind of a money grab. But, I cut a pretty wide section of movies. I mean, romantic comedies, not so much, but outside of that, I'm watching kind of whatever, I agree. I've got my brother. My brother has a very interesting taste in movies in general, and so I'm always I usually discover a lot of really random movies through him. Nicolas Cage. I can't get off of this without mentioning Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
I love Nicolas Cage because of how wild everything he does is. I mean, I can watch it. You know, I will force myself to sit through some Nicolas Cage movies. You know, but Vampire's Kiss is like way up high on my all-time favorites list because of how wild it is. And you know, he's been in some good movies.
Yeah, he has, definitely. Con Air, that's one.
Yeah, classic. Again, great movie, right? I mean, you know, where it's like traditionally you wouldn't think of it as a great movie, but it's kind of like Speed, right? I mean, that's Con Air is like, to me, like Speed, you know, good movie. You know?
I think he killed that National Treasure though.
Those are fun. Yeah, those are fun. I mean, you know, I've even forced myself. I mean, he's been making movies out of like Belarus or something for like the last 6 years or whatever, like talking about like 3 a week. But, you know, you even get through some of those and they're pretty wild. I can't think of the name. He's got this new one where he's like stuck at an abandoned theme park that's like haunted or something. And he's like in there killing like, you know, I don't know, it's wild. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Nicolas Cage. Face Off, super classic. Yeah. You know, The Rock. He was so good in The Rock. That's one of my.
Yes. Those are some heaters right there.
Yeah.
Off by. I gotcha. No, you're right. What's a film that you can just throw on at any time, whenever, and just have it on repeat? Just one or two that it's just good for you. I know you dropped some of the Marvel stuff, but outside of that realm, like just one film. It's a go-to.
Wall Street. I'll put on Wall Street. I've seen Wall Street a million times. Scarface. I can watch Scarface just on in the background on repeat. For whatever reason, some of the Indiana Jones movies are kind of fun. You don't have to really pay attention. Kind of anytime you look up in the movie, there's something going on. That's kind of for me what fits that bill, right? If I don't have to necessarily, the movie's not so deep that I have to pay attention to what's going on, but you can kind of look up and, you know, wherever you're at in the movie. Because when I paint, I like to have something on in the background. And like when you want to take a break or pick your head up, it can't be like, oh, I don't know what just happened in the movie. You know, you just want to be able to kind of something familiar. But at Wall Street, the movie Friday.
Oh, definitely.
The first Matrix.
Yeah.
Predator. That's another one I catch myself watching late night a lot, turning on Predator.
One for me is Happy Gilmore. I can throw that bad boy on and just.
Oh yeah.
I love that. A lot of Adam Sandler stuff. You can do that too.
Yeah. I like his older stuff. His newer stuff, not so much. But Happy Gilmore, that's a classic. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. Let's talk about like characters specifically. Like, what are some of your favorite movie characters? It could be animated, or it can be just a character as well.
Nicolas Cage's character in Vampire's Kiss.
Okay.
Kurt Russell's character in Big Trouble in Little China. I love that guy. Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
Definitely.
Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. Mm-hmm. What else? Who else?
For me, would be Escape from New York.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've got a lot of those posters too. That's real high on my sci-fi list. Escape from New York. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, he was good in that. Kurt Russell's done a lot of good stuff. I liked. I'm trying to think of who else here. De Niro's character in Taxi Driver. Mm-hmm. You know, Pacino's character in Scarface. I mean, I forget the actor's name, but you know, Manolo in Scarface was a great character to me. Like one of the best, like kind of sidekick, secondary kind of supporting characters to me. Yeah, those are my top ones.
That's good, man. That's good. Yeah, those are some definitely heavy hitters right there. I don't. One guy that comes to mind for me is he's kind of out of left field. John Goodman. When John Goodman gets on there, he can just kill anything. Really, man.
Yeah. The Big Lebowski. He was so good in that.
Oh yeah. He did that Cloverfield Lane too. That second.
Oh yeah. That's a wild movie. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a wild movie. I forgot about him in that, but yeah, he's good in that. I liked him in Oh Brother, We're Out Thou too.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, and I think he was in League of Their Own too. I believe he was in League of Their Own.
Yeah, he's had a pretty storied career. You know, he was never he wasn't like the out front lead, you know, very much, but definitely, I mean, he always left his mark on the movie. You know.
Oh yeah. What about directors? I was going to ask you about Kubrick a second ago, but I'll ask you now. You have any what's your take on him, or and some of your favorite directors as well?
Yeah, I would say James Cameron's way up there. With Terminator and Rambo and Avatar. You know, those Avatar movies have been forever. You know, I've been waiting for those for 10 years now. We've been waiting for those to come back out. But Ridley Scott.
Oh yeah,
he always makes good movies. You know, Scorsese, you can't go wrong. De Palma, you can't go wrong. Because I love Carlito's Way. That's a random movie, but
I love
that's
that.
high up there. Yeah, that people sleep on that movie. I run into more people that have never seen that. You know,
more people. Like a lot of people will praise Scarface, and then on the other spectrum, like I've never seen Carlito's Way. Carlito's Way is a smash hit. I like the acting more on that one. I like the pursuit, or just the vision that Pacino did in that one. And the accent for me is honestly better in Carlito's Way. It's almost like country-like accent. Like, I don't know.
I one of the things I really appreciate about Carlito's Way was that there were a lot of memorable characters in that movie. You know, sometimes you go through a movie and it's like there's the main character. There might be some sort of supporting character that's along for the ride too, but that movie had a lot of really, really strong characters in it. You know, memorable characters in it. Because Sean Penn was great in that.
Sean Penn killed it. Viggo Mortensen killed it. That's the highlight.
And I'm a big Viggo Mortensen fan. Eastern Promises is probably Eastern Promises and History of Violence are movies I can always watch too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to just catch him like that is a tremendous treat, to just pop up like that and kill it too. Kill it.
Yeah. But I like John Leguizamo in that. Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
Yeah, from the that's what cuts it all off right there. Oh man, that's crazy. So, last question on the film, man. Just tell us some of the films that you think we should see. I mean, aside from everything that we've talked about, those are a lot of references. But give us like one or two that's like, if you have not seen this, you need to go see it now, because it's just going to do everything for you.
I mean, just. I don't know. For one, I'd say Eastern Promises is a random movie that I run into people that haven't seen it all the time. And I'm like, it's a great movie. Vampire's Kiss, if you want something weird, that's old school Nick Cage being as wild as he can be. What else? A Most Violent Year. Have you seen that one?
No, I have not. Who's that?
I can't think of the actors in that one. It's two people you'd know, but it's set in the 80s. It's a kind of crime thriller set in the 80s. It's a good one. Most Violent Year, that's a good one. Valhalla Rising is a wild movie that I love with this guy's name, Mads Mikkelsen is his name.
I think I know. I think I've seen that one a couple of times.
There's almost no talking in the whole movie. The first hour, nobody says anything.
That's a good one. That's a great one. I do like that one a lot.
That's a really bizarre movie, but it's good.
I was in a bar in like New York with a buddy of mine, Duff Harris, and that one popped on, and I think we had talked about it prior, and I was like, hey, that's that. Like, oh, it was great. It was. I dug it a whole lot.
Yeah, strange but good, right? You have to be in the right kind of mood to watch that one. I mean, that's not just something you pop on a Saturday morning, but yeah, I like epics too. They really don't make epics anymore, you know, just like big movies. And I find a lot of people kind of, you know, I love film, so I've seen a lot of like just big movies, you know, like I'm trying to think of a good one, like big movies like Lawrence of Arabia and like Cleopatra, and just big epic movies, 10 Commandments, you know. Spartacus. I mean, my dad dug all those movies, so I watched those, and I don't think I'm always shocked that people haven't seen any of those, big movies from back in the day. So I always encourage people to try to like go back and start watching those again.
I gotcha. Those are some good ones, man. I liked it. I like it. Let's move on to like we got one more section, then we'll just close it on out with a little conclusion. But this is like the meaning. So, what does art mean to you? Yeah, go for it, man. What does art mean to you?
I mean, for me, art I use art as a real creative release. I think one of the best things it's done for me is provides kind of a creative balance to the other work that I do. I think people should find something that is going to balance. And I don't just mean like family work. I mean, like, trying to use both sides of your brain. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And for me, that's one of the biggest things that it's done. It's a much more positive, kind of outlet than, lots of other stuff I used to get into. So, for me, that's what it's kind of been. I mean, and I will say though, that sometimes the art does stress me out too, but by and large, messing something up or ruin a poster, but by and large, it's been a really good creative outlet for me. And you kind of zoom in on it. You're so focused on it that everything else has to kind of go by the wayside for a little while. You have to kind of get into a zone and work on it. And I think that's good, kind of eliminating all the rest of the noise in your life for a couple of hours kind of refreshes you when you step back into the real world,
Yeah. So let's talk about like your finished product. So when you look at your finished product, your finished, just your creation, when it's all done, it's all said and done, it's there. What stories did they hold for you?
One thing that I think I'll keep painting. I'm one of, and I talk to other artists about this. And so I'm, there's a lot of times I paint something and I look at it and I'm like, I love this. I'm not even going to sell this. I'm not even going to post it. Like, I just love this and I'm going to keep it. And I think I'll keep painting as long as that's the case, like I said, I'm pretty lucky in that, painting doesn't pay the bills. Whatever you'll give me for it, and what goes into it, the cost of just Photoshop, actually paint it onto the poster. But yeah, I mean, the finished product for me, I always liked, and when I grew up doing art, I liked black and white tight lines. That's why I like cartoons, because it's all very, tight, it's not loosey goosey. It's not abstract. It's just an object, and so it's very, the best way to describe it is very clean imagery, and so it's very satisfying when I can execute something just right. It got integrated into the poster the way I wanted it to. It came out all right. And the execution is nice and tight. I mean, it's very, very satisfying feeling for me. And sometimes I'm telling you, the people that support me, or their biggest complaint is that, I bet you I don't post but like a third of what I produce. And in the last year, I probably haven't posted a tenth of what I produced in the last year, so maybe that's just me not getting with the, with the age and handling social media the way I should to be a contemporary artist. But, a lot of it, I just paint just because I want to, and I like it. I always struggle with, sometimes I come up with these really random mashups that I wanted to do. And I'm like, nobody's going to be into this or buy this. I mean, this is so odd and random, that this is not going to work for people. But I'm not really painting it for anybody else. I'm painting it for myself. So, I sometimes I just get an itch and I've got to execute against something. When I'm done, I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, that's what I wanted, but my intention isn't to like sell it or flip it or showcase it to everybody, Well,
that's not your intention. Cause I feel like when that really kicks in and it's like, oh, I have to do this to survive. It's like, it's pressing, and you can be, you can burn out a lot quicker on that level. When you're doing it for the love of just yourself and your appreciation and why you like to do it for you, then that's where it's still clean,
Yeah. And I there's been a couple of times when I've been pressing either to do a show to execute a commission that I really wasn't interested in, where it you do get that feeling. You're like, this isn't what I'm doing this for, I will say though, with commissions, I've been really pleasantly surprised at how creative people are when they, and how random they are, when they kind of want a commission from me, because I was always very hesitant to take on a commission, just because I'm like, I'm executing somebody else's kind of vision. And then I did a couple, and they were pretty cool. I mean, people's ideas are pretty wild once they kind of get their head around what I'm doing. I usually tell people to, I usually try to have people start with either a movie or a character. Very rarely do people bring me both that they want done. I'd rather have them give me one, and then we kind of go through a creative process together. Yeah, working on a deadline, that's not, that's always been tough for me. Working on a deadline or pressed up against something I have to do, I kind of like just doing them,
I agree. I think that's what I've kind of gotten away from, and I've been pressing some hard deadlines for myself, and got to kind of change that up. So no, I got you, man. Do you have a vision or a dream for the perfect piece that you'll make, or have you already done it?
I'll be honest. The war chest piece, okay, from 1917 that I put Scrooge McDuck onto. That's, I mean, I probably will never, I can almost guarantee I will never sell that.
Yeah.
I remember like literally my hands were shaking trying to paint it because it was like so old and so valuable. And then it came out just right. I mean, it literally came out just right, especially that early on when I was painting, because like it all came together and worked on that piece. And I'll shoot you a pic of it. It might be on my social media, but that one came together. I mean, that one was better than I was executing at the time, and certainly the best I'd executed for a while after. Like just the stars aligned on that one. Yeah. I've got a poster from the 10 Commandments. I do this 10 Crack Commandments theme on the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments posters. Yeah. And I've got this one poster that's an Italian French 2-panel, and it's huge. I mean, it's huge. Yeah. And I think it's the only one left in existence.
Really?
I've been getting offers for it for years. And I'm pretty sure it's the only one left. I mean, it cost me almost $2,000 just to linen back it. It's massive. Yeah. And that one, someday I'll find some heavy hitter that's got the space and the money, and I'll do that one. But that's like sitting on standby. I've been holding on to that forever, because there will be a time and a place for that.
Yeah. No, I see the war chest one there. That's dope. I dig that. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's the one Library of Congress wanted.
Yeah. Oh, that's tremendous. And then this Calvin and Hobbes one, Son of the Roaring Dan.
Oh yeah. I loved Calvin and Hobbes when I was growing up. I remember reading all those comics. We had all those books, and we used to go through all of my. Yeah. So funny. And having kids now, it's like funny all over again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good that you get to, again, like express that to them and like share that with them. I like that because it was shared to you. It was shared to me as well. But for some, I mean, we'll pass it on along the way. So it's the fact that those are just shared. The Calvin and Hobbes and just a whole bunch of other just films and characters and inspirations in life where they come from us as a kid, and we just pass them on down. It's cool. Dig it. Yeah. What are some of your greatest memories as an artist so far? Because we're gonna close this one out, but just talk about just artist memories in general. What do you got there?
Yeah, I think that I've got. I do look back and have fond memories of the early days. In hindsight, they're fond memories of just figuring out how to do this. People always tell me, somebody's going to steal your style. I mean, I definitely wanted to do something where I was in kind of my own lane. Yeah. I haven't found really anybody that's doing this with any consistency. And I think part of it is just the struggle to make it work. I mean, you just don't understand. You can't just put acrylic paint onto a movie poster. Older posters, just soak the paint up and it just starts spider webbing all through the paper. Newer posters, I mean, you literally have to take sandpaper to them to get the layer of gloss off. I mean, it's very difficult, but I look back on, some of the very earliest times when I was ruining posters and just kind of working through how to make it happen. Those are fond memories now. I mean, working through that challenge. Another one is probably the very first group show I ever did. I put 4 paintings in a show. Still know those 2 guys out here in Dallas gave me a chance, threw something together. The show I did in LA was just, a whirlwind. That was really successful and really came together nice. That's always going to be a fond memory. Yeah, a couple of shows, but then those early days of just messing with the art by myself and really trying to figure out how to make it work. I will always hold on to that. Just overcoming that kind of challenge, Yeah.
Have you shown anything outside of the U.S.?
I did. I've got a gallery in England that has done pretty good with my art. And I did a show over there. It was pretty successful in England. But I'm definitely guilty of not being my best PR rep. It's one of those things. If it was paying the bills, I think I would spend a lot more time, promoting it. It's not really a business for me. I sell art, and I've had a couple of years where I sold a significant amount of art. I've had 30K purchases, one-off 30K purchases before. So, it's definitely, viable income, but I would like to show more in England. England has been a good, good to me with my art. But here in the States, I definitely want to do something back out in LA. And New York is someplace, just because movies are big in New York, there's a lot of those 2 areas are probably the areas that I'd like to show in next. But if I could get back over to Europe, I'd love to do something in London.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, man, let's close this one out. This is the conclusion. And then what do you got planned for this year? So this question, what are your plans and approaches for 2021?
So this year I'm really focused on trying to pull a show together in late summer, early fall, maybe like October. I'd like to do something. Okay. So I've got a bunch of backed up work that I've been working on. I'm working on some more serious themes. I've got a series of paintings that I've been kind of holding close to the vest that I've been chipping away at over the last couple of years that just focus on racist imagery from cartoons, in the early 1900s through like the 1950s, and really juxtaposing those racist images with movies that show strong characters of color, so that's something that's been interesting to me, that I'd like to kind of finish out. I've probably done 6 or 7 paintings along that theme. Haven't really showcased very many of them or posted very many of them. But I'm anxious to do something with those and get those out there a little bit. But yeah, I think my goal is to just continue to, continue to paint stuff I love. I do want to focus on one opportunity this year to show my work to the public though. And I'm hoping maybe it'll come together in October. Possibility I can get back out to LA, but I think it's probably more realistic that I do something here in Dallas. You'll have to come up.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. Let me know and we can, I'll head on up there and check this thing out, man. Cause I've never, aside from the Epoch whole showing, that was the only taste that I've gotten before. I do need some more. Do you have any shout outs that you want to give here? We're just going to close this one out. Do you got any shout outs for anybody or anything out there?
I want to shout out to my wife for being probably my biggest supporter. I think that as an artist, there's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself. There's a lot of expectation that you put on yourself. And it's not easy, doing art, doing anything as a hobby, right? You need some sort of support, especially when you're busy. And I want to shout out my girls, they've all been so supportive of me. I would not be doing this if they didn't show me the support and enthusiasm for what I was doing that they do. I don't think that I would still be doing this,
No, that's true.
But they're definitely my biggest fans. That's for sure.
Good. All right. So tell the people where they can find you. Tell the Freaks and Geeks where they can find you, either on the IG or the website itself, anything.
Yeah, you can check my workout on Instagram at Maxx Henry Frazer, MAXXHENRYFRAZER. And you can check out snipeart.com. Snipeart's got some of my older stuff on it. And it's also got kind of cool because I've got some of my posters that I like up on there. That's where I guess you found Kung Fu Awesome, that section. Yeah. And just some of my posters in general, that poster collection I like to showcase there. That's always a good starting place for people that are interested in my art, because it gives them some sense of the just infinite possibilities associated to what kind of paintings I could do, or just some of the options, that's a good place to start. Movie posters are super cool. I wish more people were into them. People think of it like, it's like something you tack up on your dorm room wall, but they're works of art, So, I encourage people to, if you got a movie you love, especially older movies, go check out the posters for them, because they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. Now I got a closet full of posters. I got a studio here full of prints and stuff like that. So I definitely, they are a part of my life as well. Have you ever heard of this? It's a gallery called Art on Fifth. It's down here in Austin, Texas.
I have. They got a lot of Dr. Seuss stuff in there.
Got some
original Dr. Seuss stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad you know. That's a great spot. And they have a lot of those foreign movie posters as well. So that's dope that you know about that. Excellent. Do you have any, aside from the event you're trying to do in October, is there any current events, is that the most important upcoming date that you have?
Yes, I'm actually going to re-engage there's a couple of theater chains that I've actually talked to about getting my art into the theater chains, just as wall art. So those are some conversations I'm going to try to re-engage with now, as we come up out of COVID. And so that would be one place where, if I do get a good deal done, and again, my intention really isn't to sell the work. It's really to find outlets to showcase the work. So there's a boutique theater theater chain that's based here in Dallas. They're actually one of the largest theater chains in the world. It's called Sinopolis. It's a Mexican company, but they actually moved their headquarters here to Dallas. So I'm going to talk to them. Continue to talk to them. I had a good conversation going with them, and then COVID hit, and obviously everything, from the theater world went down. But so, yeah, I think it's going to be really just looking for some more opportunities to showcase my work and see if I can't pull together a show in the fall.
Definitely, man. I think, I don't know. What do you think about getting something into Alamo Drafthouse? I think that would be tremendous.
Yeah, those guys are interesting. I compete against, Tim, who's like the founder of Alamo. I run into him all the time in poster auctions. I mean, not run into him, but competing against him. He's got a much bigger budget than me to buy posters, but he's got a really, really sweet collection. And if anybody's in Austin, some of those draft houses, they showcase some really cool posters. He's got a collection of like spaghetti Western posters that are just awesome, So yeah, those are definitely the types of venues. Some of the venues have an issue where the studios don't like, it's very structured what they can put in there. And so, while, certainly what I do falls into artistic license, right? It's still just, especially with Disney is nuts about their characters and where they're displayed. So I have had some issues with Disney specifically before. But yeah, I love the whole, Alamo Drafthouse, the idea of Alamo Drafthouse. Like I said, that was the first place I was buying those alternative movie posters from back, 2007, 2008. I've got a pretty big collection of those too, but that's where I ran into those. That's what got me started, Alamo Drafthouse.
I need to get one, man. I don't think I have an alternative one. I'm pretty sure I don't. I need to get one. I do need to. You got me on this on an itch to.
You'll go down a rabbit hole. I'll send you some of the ones I've got. I've got a bunch. I sold off. Tyler Stout's the big guy for me in that space. The artist Tyler Stout. Man, I love his stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any questions for me or anything like that? What do you got? Anything?
No, you've been, how did you get into collecting movie posters? That's such a niche thing.
Um,
What's the first poster you got?
First poster I got with it's not a movie, man. I don't know what the first poster would have been, but I know my uncle passed down a lot of them to me. Like I mentioned, I dropped that the Speed one. He gave me that one. He gave me a sick it was a Sean Connery GoldenEye one. That was like one of his oldest ones that he had. What else did he give me? One of the theater pressing or the theater prints of Friday Night Lights, where it has do you know what's up with the backing on that? Why is it not like? Can you tell us about that? You'll have the image on the front, and you'll also see it all the way through on the back, or
oh, that's for So they started doing that for the light boxes.
Okay,
they post them in light boxes, so they're shining the light through them.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that's to lighten them up.
Okay. Yeah. So that's one that I have that's the only one that I have that's like that. But I don't know, man. Posters were, I guess posters came for me when I was in like maybe middle school, and the room was just decked out with movie posters. I had the Scarface poster. I had a Rocky poster. I think for some reason I sent off for like a Pirates of the Caribbean Johnny Depp poster, and I got that one. But yeah, I don't know, just the uncle for sure, I think sparked it a whole lot with posters. And I think my father as well. But he's the one that passed off a bunch of them to me that I still have to this day.
What's like the white whale poster you're looking for? The one you don't have that you wish you did.
Okay, let's see. I'm not going to say any music ones because I do love music ones, but I've started to acquire those, some older music posters, concert posters and stuff like that. But for a film, I love the Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon stuff that you have, but I have a Bruce Lee piece here. Man, I don't. Let's see. What's a good film? The Forrest Gump poster, because that film came out on my birthday. Dig that one. Yeah. That's not like off the wall or anything like that. But as far as like I do want to get a foreign one, maybe a Die Hard one. I think I had an image on my Instagram of like a Die Hard mock kind of poster like image, but probably like a Die Hard foreign Die Hard print or something like that. Yeah, I think that
the wildest Enter the Dragon poster is the Polish poster for Enter the Dragon. You ever seen one of those?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, you should check those out. Those are really cool. Polish posters in general are really pretty neat.
Yeah.
Poland is like in a whole different world with regards to the imagery they use on the posters. But the Enter the Dragon one is pretty famous, pretty rare. It's pretty nice. I got a couple of them. I snap those up every time I can find.
I have been thinking about a taxi driver one, maybe like a Japanese taxi driver.
Yeah, Taxi Driver's another way. Did you see that? So Taxi Driver is one that I mash up with Heavy Traffic. There's a lot of parallels in that Bakshi Heavy Traffic, and one of the ones I actually showed out in LA that's still out in LA on display is an Italian 2-panel that's all blue for Taxi Driver. It's a famous image of him walking down the street alone.
Yeah.
So I love those posters. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, no, I love them. A lot of like we said, just a lot of not hidden images, but stuff that you don't get, stuff that is not input to the American poster.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Max. Well, thank you so much. This was episode number 25. I appreciate it, man. Have an amazing rest of the day, and just hold back for just a moment. I'm gonna wind it on down for the Freaks and Geeks.
Well, Freaks and Geeks, that's all she wrote. Once again, I want to thank my guest, Maxx Henry Frazer of SNIPE Art, for coming through on episode number 25 of the podcast and really sharing a whole lot as an artist, as a poster collector, and as a person. Make sure you go check him out at snipeart.com. I'm going to leave a description in the podcast show notes, a little link in the show notes for that. And also go follow him on Instagram at Maxx Henry Frazer. You can check out some information in the podcast show notes as well. But if you go over to snipeart.com, you can check out some of his past work, and you can check out some of the posters, the amazing posters that he has in his collection. Some really cool stuff. You got to go check that out. Snipeart.com. Also, huge shout out to Greenbelt Botanicals for sponsoring the podcast. Freaks and Geeks, make sure you go use that promo code FootDoctor15. Get yourself 15% off your purchase at Greenbelt Botanicals and greenbeltbotanicals.com. They got it all over there. Again, FootDoctor15. Use that promo code. Check them out. Freaks and Geeks, thank you for listening. And remember, new episodes are released every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Do me a favor and go subscribe to the podcast on whichever podcast platform that you prefer. And make sure that you rate and leave a comment while you're there too, subscribing. Also, be sure to follow me on IG, the Instagram, the 512 Foot Doctor, THA 512 FOOTDR, and follow the podcast Instagram as well, the Doctor's Orders Podcast, THA DRS ORDERS PODCAST, and continue to tell freaks and geeks that you know about the podcast. Remember, the Doctor's Orders Podcast is a Life or Death Studios production. Freaks and Geeks, until next time, we'll see you on the next one. Don't be late.